meet you.
Did you meet when I was here?
You're from Prairie Village?
Roland Park.
Park. It's next door. Of course.
Where did we meet? You must have been here already in October when I was here.
I was.
Started last in February.
Okay.
Then you drive a Tesla.
That's right.
Yeah, I don't remember how that came up, but anyhow.
There you go.
He is awesome.
No, you were down for the opening of social science,
Yeah.
and we ate lunch at the same
That's
time.
what it was. Thank you. Thank you.
And I was in Title IX training that day. So Dean got felt bad with that too.
Yeah.
Awesome.
See, I didn't have to tell you that, and you'd have wondered, you thought for days.
I
Where?
looks so familiar.
It's a mask. It throws everybody off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. These masks keep coming down. They're kind of loose.
I know.
Oh, well, thanks for your work today with the table. That's why. So they're seeing right here.
I don't know. Could I borrow a piece of paper, Jim? I have a scratch one. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, welcome everybody. Can I have your attention? So this is going to be a little strange. The microphone is not for you. The microphone is for the live stream, if there's anybody out there. So the good news is, one of the goals tonight is to hear from all of you, anything you would like to share, ask about, but mostly collect that in an active listening way, like think about it. We're not necessarily I don't want to go too deep on any individual topic and not feel like somebody doesn't get a chance to share. So that will be the goal, is to hear from you, maybe have some thoughts and go on. We're going to introduce ourselves. And unless somebody would kindly raise their hand to offer a prayer, I will do it if you make me. That's okay. That's all right. Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time, and especially for this place and these people. Thank you for the opportunity to come together and share about our love of Bethany and support one another, and help us to lead better and to lead Bethany to a bright future. Thank you for all your blessings. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, so introductions. I will go last, actually. So you want to grab that one?
Good evening. I'm Tessa Peters, Director of Student Affairs here at Bethany, and I am the Staff Senate President, so that's why I sit on the board.
Hi, I'm Beth Mauk. I'm the President of Bethany College.
Amy Bauer, Vice President of Administration. I'm here running the chat, so I'll be adding any comments that are shared on the chat tonight.
Cheryl Rasmussen. I'm a member of the board. I graduated in '82. And I think Roper asked us to say why we were on the board, and I just love this place, and so I just want to do all that I can to help it be prosperous.
I'm going to skip.
I'm Jim Martin, graduated from Bethany in 1968, and much like Cheryl, I'm here because I love Bethany, and somebody asked me.
I'm Carol Gesenius. I'm a graduate of 1973, and I've been on the board a year and a half of Zoom meetings. And I hope that will end soon, because they're not quite the same as meeting in person like this. I'm on the board because someone asked me. He is in the room. And I enjoy learning more about Bethany on the inside, because I have been supportive of Bethany for the past too many years to count, and I appreciate the time.
I'm Becky Anderson. I am a '69 grad of Bethany. I have been the mayor, and I am just about to leave that position. But I love Bethany, and Lindsborg loves Bethany. So it's been wonderful to work with Beth between city and college. So we got to keep it up.
I am Addison Botkin. I'm a senior at Bethany. I'm lucky enough to be the president of the student government. So with that position comes this role of being on the board. And so far it's great.
Mike Dreyer from Lindsborg, class of 1997. And like most everybody here, I'm on the board because I was asked to be, but it's been a pleasure to this point.
Okay, so now I'd like to ask cabinet members to come forward and speak into this mic, which is going to be a little strange, and just share who you are and your role at Bethany, maybe how long you've been with Bethany.
Sure. Hi, my name is Dr. Adam Pryor. I'm the Provost and Chief Academic Officer. I was a professor in the Religion Department before this. I've been at Bethany for 9 years.
Hi, Krista Harris. I am a 97 grad. I am the Chief Financial Officer, and I have been back at Bethany about 5 years now.
Hi, my name is Matt Fonstall. I serve as the Vice President of Student Affairs. I am a 2006 graduate of Bethany, and I've been back at Bethany since 2014, so going on my 8th year.
Laura Moreno, Dean of Athletics, 2009 graduate, and I've been back at Bethany. This is my 9th year back.
Carissa Hoffman, Lena Hoffman, and Ara Hoffman. I'm the Executive Director of Advancement and Alumni. I've been here a little over a year.
Thank you. And thank you for bringing the supporters. Future Swedes. So you're going to see me reading my notes from my phone. I promise I'm not checking text or email. My name is Roper DeGarmo. I'm a 2000 grad of Bethany College. I've been on the board for still going on 7 years and the chair for 2.5. So I first of all want to thank everybody that came out tonight, and for anybody who's listening in on the live stream, I genuinely appreciate you taking the time to share your love and passion for Bethany. We're, as you kind of hear, so I didn't share, why did I serve on the board? Well, Jim Martin asked me, and I was sort of flabbergasted and thought, of course I have to serve for Bethany, because Bethany kind of set my foundation 21 years ago. So if what I want tonight to be is sort of the restarting of something that I think was more regular pre-COVID. I know that I stood in here basically 2 years ago as the incoming, or the new chair, and we did introductions, and then I was just telling Beth that in that room in March of 2020, I thought I had shaken the last hand of my life when I said goodbye to Bob Vogel and walked out, and then the whole world changed. So the board, we have been talking about doing more of this, and almost as importantly, having some board members participate in things like ad hoc or city council just to keep plugged in. I really just can't stress enough that when we talk about Bethany and the Lindsborg community, I think it just has to be a big we. Like, we are small, both small, Lindsborg, both in a small college, and I don't think we can really thrive without each other. So I think that what we hope to be doing here is starting that cycle of giving us a rhythm of being engaged and talking with one another. I can already tell you that I've heard many positive things about Beth's involvement around different organizations in town, so I thank her for that. Let's see. So I think I will share, so again, just when you do come up with questions, you'll have to come up to the microphone and speak into it for the people that are on the live stream. But really, we maybe even will restate it just to make sure that it's heard, because really what we want to do is kind of sort of collect some feedback. There'll be an opportunity for some question and answer, but I wouldn't hold out hope that we solve any problems tonight. We just want to kind of hear from people, if that's okay. Let's see. So I want to recap just a little bit, because it took, if I started thinking back to spring or to June of 2019, which is when I stepped into the chair role, basically on my way in is when Will Jones was on his way out, and so we stepped in and Beth came along as our interim president. Our first board meeting, I'm coming back to this is important to me, in October of 2019, we had a board meeting, and with Beth's first board meeting, she promptly grabbed all the board members and marched us around campus to the, not the shiniest parts of campus, let's put it that way. And we spent a significant amount of time in Warner Hall. And as you all know, Warner Hall was just about to be done renovating. Now, that's not all thanks to Beth, but she certainly played a major role in getting that done. So I think that perspective, and then as you think through the other things that marked time over the last 2 years, it was comforting to me to remind myself we are moving forward and making some progress. So the last thing I wanted to share, and I hesitate, is for years I've been thinking about Bethany in the framework of a plane in flight. Often we're repairing the plane in flight while it's in flight, and that's a challenge. But it recently became clear to me, or it was presented, and another speaker talked about thrust, lift, weight, and drag. I'm looking at Jim because he's the pilot, and he probably knows. He'll look at me and say, "You got it wrong." But as I think about Bethany and where we are today, those are, and you think about the thrust that we need and the lift, I look back at 2020, and as we were flying into the cloud bank that was COVID, none of us knew what was on the other side. So we did our best to prepare. We had best case and worst case scenarios, and we went into the summer. And then we just held our breath until fall of 2020. And thank goodness we came through the clouds, and it wasn't a mountain on the other side, it was actually a valley. And I'm happy to say, if you had told me where we are today, in 2020, I would have just been over the moon. We have challenges, we have work to do, but financially we are on good footing. We're making progress on our buildings. So for that, I am eternally grateful for Beth and her leadership and the team and all the work that has gone on around here. So I wanted to share that and then open it up for questions. Do you want to say anything? No. All right. Yes. So does anybody have any initial questions? I can actually come to you.
I actually do have a question, like as a follow-up to your comment about coming out of a fairly tumultuous year and a half or so. So I was wondering so I know that you've been in close communication with Beth about Bethany and working closely with people here. I was wondering if the board, to what extent are you following what's going on in higher education, particularly in the wake of the pandemic? Like, do you read the Chronicle of Higher Ed, or like, to what extent are board members making a point of thinking about Bethany's situation within the context of a larger, fairly challenging moment for higher ed?
I think maybe I'll let Beth weigh in on this too, and anybody else who wants to, but the current state of higher ed is extremely challenging. And we can see it in there was a stat I once saw that said I don't know what the numbers are, 900 schools surveyed, all had budget challenges, and all were projecting to close those budget challenges with increased enrollment, while the number of students that were going to college was going down. So those things do not go together. Not everybody can increase their enrollment when the pie is getting smaller. We have been quite fortunate to have Beth's leadership and then the strategic planning things that we're doing with Credo to try to stay ahead of that. I'm not going to sugarcoat it though. It's like we still have a big challenge in front of us to get to the next decade and beyond, to be competitive in higher ed. So to answer your question directly about, yes, I don't regularly read the Chronicle of Higher Ed. I get things emailed to me when pertinent. And I do think it's important, and the board we do our best to stay on top of it, but there's also a piece of it where we're really dependent on president and her administration to talk to us, and then we offer feedback as much as anything.
Well, I was just going to say too that in the believe it was March of 2020, right when COVID hit, we had a book study because we were preparing for the strategic plan, and our leaders of the plan, one of the leaders had written a book, and so we, the board members that could, met with Beth on Zoom, and we kind of prepared for that strategic planning session. So it wasn't the chronicle, but we do try to do things like that, and I thought that was a very valuable experience for the board, and also that Beth joined us and she could keep us, informed, and so that we knew what was going on at Bethany relative to that. So that was one thing that we did. The other thing I wanted to mention was the day one retention strategy that's happening, and explaining to students from the very beginning what they owe, what their bill means, what financial aid means, because that plays a big role in retention. And so we know that that's really important too when it comes to moving out of COVID, when it's something that colleges look at all the time. But I'm pleased with that strategy too that Beth and her team, Matt, have put into place.
I came on the board just about that time. I think it was March or April or something. But anyway, Beth had told me that they had, the board had been studying this book called Pivot. So I got the book, and I read the book. Scared me to death. And as probably Bethany being the most important institution in this city, we've got to all succeed together. But I learned a lot. And it's going to be our ability to pivot and see what we can do, and I hope that we are all doing this together, the city and Bethany College. So, yeah, I don't read the Chronicle anymore. I used to read it all, and now that you've said that to me, maybe I should read it again. So, thank you.
I think one of the things I have tried to put into place, and this has just been a really fantastic board, is this communication structure and the committee structures so that we ensure that everybody continues to know, because I don't know that everybody can know everything all at once. So, and I usually use our Business and Finance and Budget Advisory Committee as a good example for how I think we can do this, so that folks can know not just what's going on at Bethany, but what are some best practices in higher ed. So what we've now done, because to me, while Bethany is stable, we are still fragile, as I tell everybody, and I want everybody to understand that together. I want the board to know that. I want everybody on campus to know that. So what we've done is that, yes, the primary responsibility for the budget goes back and forth with Krista and I, but we make sure that 8 times a year we're meeting with the Business and Finance Committee of the board, so that they're understanding what we're doing and why. What are these fundamental pieces of our budget that is a higher ed budget? And so when you talk about what would they know about higher ed, that is a higher ed budget. And then what we also are doing is meeting with the faculty, staff, people on campus, so that they're also understanding what we're doing. And it's very predictable. And so that's something I've tried to do, so that everybody can be staying up with what is best practice, what it is we're doing. And I think the budget thing is a good example, because in higher ed right now, because we know there are fewer 18-year-olds and because we know that discount rates are going up, then everybody can be understanding what practices we're putting into place to ensure that we have a financial plan moving forward. So that would be an example I would use.
I do subscribe online to the Chronicle, but I have to say I think I gain more useful information from a network of administrators, faculty, board members of a number of higher education institutions, and listening to them to find out what they're experiencing, what's working, what isn't working. certainly the Chronicle is a worthwhile publication. I don't know that it's focused really well for boards. I think there may be is something out there that might be better, but it's probably more expensive, so that's not what I get.
Thank you. Not to cut off, but moving along, are there other questions, comments from anyone else? The microphone is on only if you're on the web. So the microphone is for the people watching at home, not for you. Sorry, Jim. Any other questions, comments, concerns? The question is, the question is, what was our retention rate going into September of 2020, 2021? Is that something that might just be? No.
We do have, I don't remember the exact number. We did take a bit of a hit because of COVID, but I don't remember what the number was.
Depends on how you want to slice and dice the number. If you want to talk about the retention rate of first-time freshmen, it ended up hovering around 40%. In order to understand what occurred and why we had a 15-point drop on year over year, we did some deeper dives and analysis. I can tell you without any shadow of a doubt that a change in the football team probably tanked that number pretty severely. We retained 2 first-time freshman football players. So I can pretty well account for that if we had retained those numbers at the pace that we would have actually exceeded the previous year, which is the good news. If you look at the overall retention rate for the college, if you include freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors, and transfers who then move into those pieces, the full-time retention rate was around 68%. Again, a little bit down, but not surprising given the dip that we saw in the first-time freshmen. For the start on 20th day of fall 21, it was 690. That's degree-seeking full-time students. So the number goes up if you count non-trad students. I don't know that one off the top of my head. You can always count on the CFO to know what the number is.
Thank you. Thank you. Other questions? We're going to start reading from the online post here in a minute, but for those who showed up or able to show up, Corey?
Turn down a microphone. First of all, for those of you that are out there on the web, this is Corey Peterson, local shopkeeper, Bethany alum. But first of all, I want to thank all the board and the administration and all the faculty and staff for navigating through this difficult time. Roper, thanks for leading with the importance of Lindsborg-Bethany relationship, and thank you, Mayor, for continuing that conversation a little bit. But I want to comment and then question. Comment would be a comment of gratitude of thanks to the campus, the administration for being active in the community. I think we see you around and involved in things, whether it's ad hoc or the strategic alliance that we have is a very important part of the community. Thank you for that. And I think that relationship between the college and the campus and the town and the USD, I look at those three as being 3 very important partners. And it seems to be that that's probably the best relationship we've seen in a while, and I want to thank you for that. Question would be, what can we do as a community to help Bethany on an ongoing basis and even further strengthen the relationships between those 3 important groups?
What a fantastic question. I think frankly, that might just be the question. The whole purpose of tonight is that question. What can we do together to support one another and be the most vibrant community and college that we can be? There's probably no answer and 900 answers. But I honestly think it's going to be lots and lots of little things, staying engaged. I want to, so we'll get to some of the online questions, and so you can answer this too if you think there are specific things that we can feed back to the community. I think one way we can do that is finding opportunities for board members to attend and to hear what's going on in the community. That would be good. Yeah. You have any thoughts?
Well, I mean, one of the things, we're on the Strategic Alliance together. I think one of the things that we really need to do, and we've talked about this coming out of COVID now, is to really think about what we think Lindsborg needs to be as we're looking forward, and how can we work together to make those decisions, and looking at the strategic plan that Lindsborg just did, looking at the strategic plan that Bethany's doing. Where are there areas of overlap? One of the things I certainly see is that the city has talked about workforce training and ensuring that there are more jobs and good jobs, and how do we get people to stay at the job. So that to me is one way that I think we can work together in a meaningful way over a long period of time so that we have a more stable community. So that would be one of the good examples.
Lindsborg has just hired our new city administrator. Her name is Christy Northcutt. She's a 2000 grad of Bethany. She is coming to Lindsborg from Arizona. She's exceedingly excited. She worked here at Bethany in the advancement office. She was the alumni director for a while. But I think it's a great opportunity for Lindsborg and for Bethany College because she knows us. She knows Lindsborg and she knows Bethany College. So the learning curve will not be huge for her. And I think that's really important at this time. She certainly knows the campus, she knows the traditions and all of that, but she also is a very smart woman. And she is coming from a part of the country in a suburb of Phoenix and bringing already some new ideas. So I'm looking forward to that, and I know that Christy is as well.
I think that's an excellent example of the overlap.
She's listening. Oh. If you'd like to read her comment, or I can.
Yeah, would you?
Yeah.
I can see that one.
Christy Northcutt, who Becky Anderson just mentioned, is actually listening on the live stream, and she just added a comment. From the standpoint of the city, I intend to ensure that our partnership remains strong going forward. President Malk and I have already started communicating about possibilities.
And I don't think it's violating any privacy to let you know that I talked to Beth before she was hired, and that was her. She was like, they should hire her. She's really good.
Do you have a timetable for the adoption of a strategic plan and/or a campus master plan? Because once those things become public, it becomes something that can be taken out and sold to
Excellent.
Our interested parties.
Thank you, Bill. The question is, do we have a timeline for adoption of the strategic plan and or the master plan for the campus? And I know there is one.
Yes, there is one. So we are together working on both a strategic plan for the college and then a campus master plan, which is about our facilities. On purpose, the campus master plan is trailing the strategic plan, and that's done on purpose. The strategic plan right now, we have had the entire campus in August had an opportunity to give comments. The board had an opportunity in October. We've now gotten a smaller group who's taking all of those ideas and working with them. That's an on-campus group. We will, in February and March, get back to the larger groups. So February with the board, March with the larger campus, and maybe even February with the larger campus. The idea is that we will present this to the board. Now, at that point, they should have seen it several times, and we would expect that the board will approve the strategic plan in May for implementation and starting implementation in the fall. The campus master plan is trailing, and I believe that it would be in the next academic year that we would have that more together so that we know what we're planning and what we have to do. So there's two pieces to the campus master plan. One is some of the deferred maintenance. So what are we doing? What needs to be done on a, I'll say, more daily basis? And then we're really going to need to start to understand when major overhauls are needed for buildings, so that we don't wind up with something like Warner, which hadn't really been touched in almost 50 years. So those are the two pieces of that, really.
Thank you. Got a question?
I don't know if you're ready to share these. Jill Fishburne has added a question.
Yeah.
Hear from her.
Hi, Jill.
The question is, how are board members selected, and what qualifications do they have in order to be selected? And this is an online question.
For those of you who couldn't see, I was waiting for this question because I want you to go to bethanyboard.com and you will find a nomination form. Service on the board is an honor, but it's also something that takes time. So if you know of somebody who is qualified and interested, and if that person is you, the chair of the governance committee is Bruce Dace. Thank you. Sorry, Bruce. And Bruce and I have been talking lately about the process of cultivating new board members. But the nomination process is literally anybody. You don't have to be an alum. You don't have to be from Lindsborg, obviously. But the process then is get your name known, get the person that you think is a candidate known to the board. One way is to fill out a form at bethanyboard.com. Also, you can email me. If you can't find my email address, just see if you can find my name, roperdegarmo@gmail.com, and email the president. There's any number of ways to make it known that you're ready, willing, and able to serve, so that we can, then the process, the board actually vets and selects the future board members. So by our bylaws, that's just there is a more detailed process, but essentially that's what it is. Oh, yes. And there are board members like the Central States Bishop and the Arkansas, Oklahoma Bishop. So we have seats that are designated to people or positions. That's a good question. I know we have it. Well, right there. Addison is not an alumni yet. It is. I know. I'm thinking of the spreadsheet that shows me that. I don't know the answer though. Yeah, I bet 90% of them are Bethany grads.
There's a couple that aren't, but yeah, basically everybody's.
Yeah, Jack Lindquist is not a graduate, and then of course the bishops, Marie Friedemann.
So two questions, follow-up questions to that. How long has this been, is this a fairly new initiative, or is this how the board selection has operated for quite a while? And secondly, I wondered, Bethany student demographic is, predominantly I think we've got 15% Black American students, almost 20% Latin American, Latino, Latinx students. And so I didn't know if that racial diversity is reflected on the board at all, or if the board is thinking about those kinds of things. Does the board reflect the student body demographics?
Thank you. I'm going to start with the second one and have you remind me of the first question. But the question is, does the board think about and reflect the ethnicity of the student body? And the answer is very clearly no. That is something that we do think about a lot and is, I think, really important to the board. Recruiting candidates to make that happen. So, I know, and that leads me right into the next question. It's not really new. There's no new initiative of how we're looking for board members. It's nothing that we haven't done in the past. I just want to be very open and public about the fact that you can nominate yourself or somebody that you think would serve. You might check with them before you throw their name in the hat, just to because we might just rip them right in before they're willing. But yeah, that's not a new process, but I think it's important to cast the net wide and find as much talent and interest and passion for Bethany as we can. Does anybody else want to comment on diversity for the board?
The diversity question is a good one, and it's one that we have been trying to work on for probably the last 10 years without a lot of success. A number of the folks we asked to be a part of the board of directors to reflect a little bit better the face of the student body have not been willing to serve, either because of work requirements. Right now, I believe we have 3 African American board members. And if you have names as faculty members of former students that you think might fit those roles well, it would be most helpful to have those. Claire's been helpful in providing names for us, and the same requirements are there. We look for high quality people that don't necessarily have to fit a particular expertise that we might need on the board of directors. It's always good to have an attorney or two. It's always good to have somebody that understands finance, although it's difficult to find somebody that really understands higher ed finance that isn't already in higher ed. But most of us are just guys and gals that love Bethany and want Bethany to succeed. It's good if folks, I always look for people to nominate that were a little bit smarter than I was, which was a pretty low bar. But it takes some thoughtfulness to be a good board member. Somebody that asks a lot of questions makes a good board director, and some of our student representatives have been very good at that in the past.
You want to remind the board and the audience what is the commitment for giving as a board? We expect anyone who serves on Bethany's board of directors to make Bethany one of their top 3 philanthropies. We don't want everybody that comes from great wealth. that top 3 can, if you're not in a position to give much of what you have away, it doesn't have to be a really big number, but that kind of commitment is something that we feel like once someone gets on the board, it usually grows. So. And I would just add on to that. So I asked him to share that because I think sometimes there's a perception that the board needs to be the major donor base. So what we desperately need of the board are people who are committed and love Bethany and are passionate about serving and doing the work that needs to be done. However, if you have the ability to move the needle on giving and you would like to serve, we love that too. So all are welcome. Corey?
I don't know if you want to cover this. You may notice there's quite a few Lindsborg representatives on the board, and I believe there was a concerted effort in the last round of new board members to include more Lindsborg citizens on the board.
Yeah. So.
Part of that, but because of the importance of the ties between the community and I think this is the most we've had local members of the board.
He is, Mark is. Huh. Yeah, Mark is online, I'm sure. So Corey's question is essentially about the number of local board members who are currently serving. And so there's a good representation here. And Corey's right. One of the things as Corey was outgoing chair and I was incoming chair, we talked about the makeup of the board, and I'm struggling to think of who the meeting was with right early on. That we were meeting with People's Bank, and they said we are a community bank, and I stopped and I said, that's what we want to be. We want to be a community college, but so we are a college of the community. And the way we get there is to have leadership and dedication from locals. I just can't stress it enough that the connection between the town and the college is so critical that we needed all the voices in the room. And here's one.
And I want to echo what you were saying. This board is more effective if it knows this community. And COVID has made this awkward, everything by Zoom. So it'll be great when we can all get together. But there are things that are happening in this community that I want Bethany College alums and friends to know about. One is I look over here and see Chris Bauer, who is on our school district board. And we're going to be hiring a new superintendent of schools. And when I look at Bethany's history in education, gosh, I hope that there's some Bethany people that are going, I could do this. This is a great place. We have a great school system. So it's kind of how I felt about Christy Northcutt. I was thrilled when there was a Bethany alum and as strong a candidate as Christy was. So how we get those pieces of information out there, Chris is in charge of this, so I have no idea. I'm not going to put him on the spot here. But that is another position that is coming open, a strong position of leadership in our community that I think could help Bethany College and education department. And
Amy, do you want to share Christy's comment?
Christy Northcutt has added, it's important that we engage and retain the interests of the diverse student body as they transition into their role as alumni and into their careers so that we can bring them back to the board.
And again, you don't have to be a graduate of Bethany College to serve and help lead the board. So diverse leadership can come from anywhere. If they're willing and they can share our love and passion for Bethany, we'd love to hear from them. There's another comment about on the message board about emails that had been sent to I don't think it was just the board, but maybe also some faculty members, and around concern of critical race theory and how it is taught or not taught or at Bethany. And I'm not going to dodge the question. It's so far outside my area of expertise that I don't have any real thoughts on it other than I believe we as a board work extremely hard to find the right leader for the college, and Beth is doing an excellent job. And she in turn is tasked with finding faculty to teach and love and grow our students. And so there is a process by which we decide what needs to be taught and how it's taught and who teaches it. And so I will let Beth share a comment on that too.
Yes, thank you. And I would agree, getting into the specifics of one topic or another is not important. I think what I'd like to do is to describe my thoughts on topics in higher education, because our faculty really do need to bring all perspectives and all points of views to our students. It is so important as an institution of higher education, whether they are controversial or whether they are commonplace. So how do I make these decisions about our faculty? And I would say I'm in a slightly also more unique position because I was the vice president of academic affairs and I am a longtime faculty member. And so this sense of academic freedom, but also academic responsibility is very, very important to me. And with academic freedom, which is what the tenure process is all about, it is what faculty should expect, comes this sense of academic responsibility. Faculty need to be thinking about the topics that they're bringing to students. They need to do research because these are all new topics. And I have to just be able to say, do I believe and have faith in our faculty? And yes, I do. And how do I see that? I don't see it when a controversial topic comes up. I see it every day. I see it in how our faculty interact with our students. I see it in how they engage with first-time freshmen when they're in classes with them and how they engage with those topics. And I then can have the confidence that when something controversial comes up or something new comes up, that they've done research. We ensure that our faculty members have opportunities for professional development, and it's also important to me to have our staff members have opportunities for professional development, but specifically our faculty members who do touch new ideas all the time, I want to ensure they have these opportunities to be able to get this information, because they'll be the ones assimilating it with information that we already have. And so that is the way that I make these kinds of decisions. And so whether it's critical race theory or whatever the next topic that will come up, I have faith in our faculty that they will be able to guide our students in the thought process for how it is we assimilate all of these different ideas. And that's the way that we do this.
Thank you. I have a tag onto that, but I want to keep it open. And as the questions are dwindling, if board members have questions, comments, or things that they want to share, go ahead.
There's another question if we're ready to move on. But what is the purpose of the board, and who does the board report to?
Oh, that's an interesting question from the chapel. Okay. Yeah. The purpose of the board is to govern the college. And Bruce Dace, our secretary of the board, sent me probably 13 bullet points from the bylaws of the role of the board. And they're relatively specific, but really come down to this primary question of hire and support and, if necessary, replace the president, and then oversee policies and projects. And so in a real way, we're advisors together with the president in leading the board or leading the college. But of course, as board members, we don't have the expertise to get down in and renovate Warner, so that's all delegated out. But does anybody have any other thoughts on the role of the board? Governance. It's a challenge. So to follow up on it, one of the challenges for all of us who come from other areas, because most of us come from non-higher ed, is we see a problem and we just want to jump in and fix it. And so that's not really the role of the board, although if you see a piece of trash on campus, that's the role of the board to pick that up. But maybe not to redesign the layout of benches on the quad or something like that. So,
I agree with Roper. That's the role of the board. There's a fiduciary role. I think my role, and I think this is important for me to reiterate after Kristen's initial question at the beginning, is I believe that the president's role is really to sit in the middle of the institution and ensure that everyone understands the roles of everyone else, because Roper's right. So the board will oversee major policies, but typically if it's a faculty policy, again, I would trust the faculty to bring it up. The one piece of this that why it's been so important to me to develop these best practices and some of these structures is I think, again, when we have a challenge is if there's something controversial that comes up or something that maybe one particular piece of the institution may suddenly have to engage in. And that's why I think it's so important that we have these best practices policies and these structures in place, and frankly things like this, so that we can have these conversations when there maybe aren't obvious challenges, so that when we do have challenges, we certainly can go to the structures in place and see how they're solved, but we can also have conversations about them, and we can have conversations about why the decisions are made that are being made. And that is why these structures that we're putting into place are in place are so, so important to me, so that we can rely upon those in times of challenge.
I keep flashing to Robert's rules of order that I don't like, but I understand they're necessary when there's challenging topics to address. So similarly, the board structure and the bylaws and the way we govern the college, are necessary for times of challenge, and they're supportive in times when things are going well. So, question?
So as you are beginning this process of strategic planning, I'm curious how the board thinks about previous strategic plans. Does the board do an assessment or an evaluation once a strategic plan is in place and it's implemented, and then it kind of runs its lifespan? Is there an evaluation process of looking at past strategic plans, saying this worked, this didn't, here's why this worked, here's why this didn't, to help inform decisions in the next round of strategic plans?
I think that's a good question. Yes, the answer is not overly simplified. Yes, that the prior strategic plan and plans are an important piece, partially in identifying as those plans move. I'm thinking of the last one, which is the only one I'm familiar with. We moved through pieces, and steps of it needed to come earlier or later in the process, and the need for a new strategic plan was sort of also an understanding that it's, okay, this led us to here, and now we can reassess and move to here. So I'm not sure we necessarily abandon, but it's more like a progression.
Yeah, I mean, all strategic plans are going to be living documents. And the last strategic plan we had was being evaluated. I know it was brought to the board, again, in my former role, I know that, as it was moving. For this strategic plan, there will be, because it'll be very important to all of us, metrics involved that will be important. And again, broad metrics, we were talking about retention of students, so that would certainly be something broadly we could look at. And then those measurements will be, the metrics will be brought to the board so that they can start doing evaluative pieces on it. But again, any strategic plan will be a living document so that we will continue to move with it. It will, grow or not grow, some of this does wind up being trial and error, and so if there's a piece of the strategic plan that all of us felt was important, that is the board, it's the faculty and the staff, it's the community, and yet we start down it and the metrics aren't going in the way that we thought they would, it is possible that we would make changes.
I'll just tag on to that as I think about, there's a piece to this of thinking into the past that I'm interested in. For anybody here or listening in, I have an interest in prior year's budgets, so surely somebody in here has one that's you could dust off, and as far back, that's something that I'm interested in as a board member. Is I know I have the budgets for the last 6 years, but I would be quite interested to see them prior and how they sort of connect. I think about that analogy of flying a plane, and a lot of the things that Beth has done in the last couple of years has really been reducing drag. That there are things that we know how to do, we just have to make sure that we do them consistently and do them well to reduce the drag and allow us to do that. We also know there's no more opportunities for cutting weight. We are a small college with a small budget relative to the size of the operation that we have. So we just don't have the ability to cut our way out. We know that we need to be efficient, and we know that we need to be looking into the future and finding that next thing, the idea. So again, I kind of come back to, that's a really big part of board service and leadership, is bringing ideas to the table, bringing connections from other institutions, or bringing connections to other businesses that maybe can help. Those are the kinds of things that we're going to need for the future of Bethany.
There is not a wind tunnel for developing a college. It's an analogy I just thought of when Roper was talking. You can put a model of an airplane in a wind tunnel and learn a lot about whether it's going to fly or not. With us, it's something of a trial and error thing. We think the things that we're planning strategically will work, but sometimes you have to make a quick decision that they aren't working. And I think that's been a challenge in the past. I will say that I think Beth has had us more involved with the development process of the strategic plan early on than we have been in the past presidencies that I had some involvement with.
I was just going to say, too, that the strategic plan, I think, helps keep us focused, whether it's in a board meeting on the agendas or the president's evaluation, for example, or in any of the departments that really do a laser focus on, okay, this is what we said we were going to do in the plan, and here's on our report on how that's happening. I think that's happened in the past, and I expect it to continue to happen. So the process, I think, works, and it allows you to see what's going on relative to your goals.
Thank you. So we didn't have a specific cutoff. We're getting close to an hour, which would be good. But yeah, we have time. So more questions, Claire?
I was just going to shift gears just a little bit. First of all, a comment or two, and then question. First of all, in terms of the comment, I can say from experience, we're very fortunate in the position that we are moving into, and in the opportunity I had to work with President Beth. And she does a great job with our lead donors, building a relationship with them, and that's critical to the college, and the tremendous work with foundations. And it's because of those things that some of these things are happening on campus right now. And that is certainly very, very important to the college and to our sustainability. The other thing I was going to mention is that for Bethany, our number one resource is our people. And of course, our students, we've talked about recruitment and retaining our students. Then our faculty and staff. Retention of faculty and staff is crucial to Bethany because it also very closely relates to what I call alumni engagement. And alumni engagement and participation, the fact if they have a lot of faculty and staff that are retained, that is the most important thing to keeping our alumni engaged and participating in the college. Corey had asked a question in regards to community involvement. Well, then there's the question, social media is, it's here to stay, and it's a great thing for promotion and a great thing for marketing, but at the same time, it can really be a negative thing, as we all know. And I think the question comes up, and a lot of times probably the negative comes from alumni and people who are not engaged, and they're not inside, and they don't know what is happening. But my question is, how should that be addressed? Now, there was a time in the past administration where there got to be some real nasty things going on social media, you know. And we don't want that. But should there be someone designated on the campus? Because obviously some of the comments that we're hearing is alumni that if they aren't local, they don't feel like they're involved or engaged. And so for those who comment like that, could there be somebody designated from the campus who reaches out to them personally? And maybe we can turn that negative into a positive. And as those negatives are turned into positives, then those are contagious. And that could turn this whole thing. But that's just a question that I had.
That is a deeply challenging question, really. The question is essentially how to have a dialogue, a positive, constructive dialogue in social media. And I have yet to see it. I mean, there are sparks of things when it can go well, but yeah, it can go bad real quickly. But I think because the relationship isn't there. So it's something we're aware of and we're talking about as a board. I would be reluctant to advise the president to delegate resources to that channel. In some ways, it's not that, I guess I'll put it this way. I said to someone else that Bethany needs people, all the people we can get to do all that they can, whenever they can and however they can. Well, if there are negative comments online about Bethany, we really need our Bethany community to stand up and support one another. And I'm not sure that we can or should be asking the president or the communications office to police that when we can do it ourselves. And we can just, and again, with the big capital we, should respond. And I'm aware of some of the negatives, and I have seen very good responses. The best being essentially, easy to be critical. Can you offer some thoughts on what might be better? Do you have ideas? So if we can help change those dialogues into not questions of intent or competency, but idea sharing of things, here's what I can contribute to Bethany, not necessarily even financial, but I would love to help and finding ways of doing that. Anybody else have thoughts on that? No. Yeah, please.
I'm going to skip over some just because this is directly related to what Claire just mentioned. This is from Jill Fishburne. To tag on to what Claire is stating, often the communication is between the board of directors, the president, and faculty and staff. How does the board of directors plan to get their message out to the general public and alumni?
Thank you. And thank you, Jill, for the question. This one, again, I'll open it up for other board members to weigh in. And I've been thinking about this because it's a criticism I've heard, frankly, at my church and at my college, and at lack of communication or not enough communication. And I was in a business leadership forum this morning, and a similar topic was bouncing around, and the question becomes like, what's the measurable? Like, how do you know when you've communicated enough? And I mean that sincerely. Like, and maybe that's what we need to figure out is when we have a message to deliver, how do we know that we've done not the bare minimum, but enough? Because we clearly don't expect someone to direct dial everybody who might be interested and tell them about the news. The other piece of that is the question of how does the board get its message out? Well, come back at me if any board members don't agree with it. I don't think the board has a message. The board is a steward of the message of the college. So if you want to know what's going on with the college, that's one thing. The question of what is the activities of the board, I mean, we can share the calendar of when committees meet, and we can talk about who's on the committees. But if you want to know who the board members are, they're all public, and if you want to talk to a board member, I suspect every one of them would be willing to engage. I know I would, and I actually hope to hear from people after this, because again, my email address is pretty easy to find. So reach out. I'd love to engage. Any other thoughts?
I would just say too that this listening session is one thing that is a response to if you have questions. We're here for the betterment of the college, and so several of us showed up tonight, and there are more online, and so I think this is a great way to get the message out and to hear what people have to say as well.
And look for the positive. There are good things you can find about what's going on. There are probably always going to be things you can find that you don't agree with. But don't land on those negatives and dwell on them. That's not good for any organization or any city. Positive attitudes are going to get us a lot farther than looking for negativity.
I agree. Thank you, Jim. Yep, Bill?
As a positive, I think this type of meeting is a very valuable thing, and it's been done in the past. But it's been done in a community setting, and the community is aware of what's coming up when a meeting like this occurs. I look around this room and I don't see too many people generally from the community, mostly already college oriented. And I think this type of thing should be continued. But perhaps at the Sunster building, perhaps at one of the bank community rooms,
Yeah. Bill's question is, or comment is essentially that this type of a meeting needs to be replicated, and I think there needs to be a rhythm, a known rhythm, so that it's not so much when is or what's going on, it's we know that there'll be an opportunity to engage. So we absolutely want to do that. One of the positives that's come out of COVID is we as a board learned that the business of the board can all be done remotely. We, for years, decades, probably forever, have come to campus and locked ourselves in a conference room for 8 hours and grind through the business of the board. And I think because we had to, we learned that we can do a lot of that remotely. And something that I'm hoping we can do in the next couple of board meetings is do some of the business of the board, that is report readouts, questions that are specific to a particular cabinet member, back and forth. We can do those things a little bit more remotely, come to campus and do some meeting, but be more engaged, be more available on the campus. And I'm encouraging board members. I'll just tell you, the reason we're here tonight is because after the October meeting, actually after the strategic planning meeting, we were talking about how can we be engaged with the community. And I thought, you know, I just want to go to Lindsborg sometime when I can get a room and I don't have to fight the crowds. So Beth and I started looking at the calendar and picked a date, and we put it on the calendar, and that's why we ended up with this date. What it'll be in the spring or next fall, I don't know, but I think it is something that we want to continue to do. And frankly, board members, it's feeding of the nurturing of the soul to be engaged and with other people who love Bethany. I'll ask for any last questions. One more? Okay.
Related to the current point, it's been shared that Alumni Council is also offering their contact information and open dialogue on social media for folks who may have negative comments or concerns. So, and then there were some other comments about alumni giving. There was a question asked, what's the current percentage of alumni giving? And President Mauck shared that was between 11 and 13%.
I just did the math problem.
There was also a comment,
and that's very good. It's actually up. We have the Bethany backers to thank for that. They have really been working at it, and we appreciate that, especially as we did the HLC visit. They were looking for dedication. They look at it that way, and so I would like to thank the Bethany backers, thank Darren Birch for that idea. You know, to me, it's like rather than asking somebody for money, you say you want to be a backer of Bethany. And I mean, look at this basketball court that we have. It is just wonderful. So we thank you for any donation, but truly even a donation of your time or your talents is just so important to us as well.
Last, it was suggested that some things happening or coming up at Bethany that the students, administration, community are excited about. Just sharing those at the conclusion of the evening was recommended in this chat.
That's an excellent suggestion, and we'll share positives on the way out.
On the alumni giving note, we're well aware, as most of us are alumni, that there's maybe a little alumni fatigue. It's not a huge number of alumni, and we keep asking or being asked for contributions to the college, and you will continue to be asked for contributions to the college. But the board of directors, each board member is being asked to provide by the end of the year the name of one person who is not an alumni or a foundation or other philanthropic organization whose goals may line up with Bethany's, to provide those names to the advancement department so that we might broaden that base, especially of foundation and corporate contributors. Those can be big dollars that can really help the college and alleviate some of that donor fatigue that some of us may feel like we're experiencing.
Does Somebody have anything they were really excited about that they want to share that's happening at Bethany?
Other people have stuff.
I will share that I am sincere. The other reason I'm here today is I'm going to be here today, and then tomorrow I get to have meetings with employees from Salina and Wichita, and two interns and maybe a third that are Bethany students. So if you want to be excited about the work of Bethany College, I encourage you to engage with students. It's just so invigorating. So that's something that I'm excited about. Auditions for Godspell on Monday evening. You probably have to be present to apply.
He said I'm allowed to be in this one. Yeah, I love this idea of ending with positive pieces. I am always so excited about the contributions of our students, our faculty, and our staff. You know, one of our alums, Kayla Burrell, who has worked for us in the pottery studio, just got a position in Salina, and so we can be so proud of all of the work that our graduates are doing to really give back not only to this community but other communities, and we're always so excited to hear of positive reports from alums. Our own students, I have always remarked at just how awesome our current students are. You know, this has been a difficult time to be a college student, and our students do not complain about the masks and all of the things that we have to do. And, you know, I find them to be so kind when they're on campus, working at all of the various pieces that are of interest to them. We have a sock and shoe drive going on, just so many things that they do to give back to this community and others, and we should just be so proud of everything that they're doing. You know, our student athletes, the students that are doing music, Godspell that's coming up, we're so excited about everything that they can be doing on campus. Similarly with our faculty and staff, and I'll bring up something that we don't have totally out there yet, but is something that's actually near and dear to my heart. We're going to be doing a poverty simulation here on campus in January. It was something that I wanted to be doing right before the pandemic, and we haven't been able to, and it was Staff Senate who came with this idea. So we're still getting some of the details together, but you can all expect to hear more about that. But you know, we have a very high percentage of Pell eligible students, which means there's a lot of students on this campus who are coming from some very challenging situations, and that our faculty and staff, as we're coming out of COVID, as we're finally able to start meeting again, want to do that as the first piece that we can do together. To me, just really speaks volumes about who the people are that are on this campus. We are working on a number of things I like to call that are the thankless jobs. We have been working on enrollment strategies to both recruit more students, retain those students that we have. We're very proud of some of those. We mentioned the day one strategy, which is something you wouldn't think of. So ensuring that our students have an understanding of how their bills are working and that they can pay their bills is so important to them, first of all, so that we're not getting them into a situation where we're setting them up for something that they don't know what they're getting themselves in for. And it's so important to me to do that, and I've been so proud of what we've been able to do with that this semester. We have a number of other initiatives that you may hear about, but you don't really see the impact that it has, and I think that's one very good example. So I am just so happy for all of the work that has been going here. I'm sure I've missed most of it, so if anybody else wants to mention something I've missed. But it's just such a joy to be here and to see the activities and what's going on and all of the excitement. So thank you to everyone.
Thank you. Not seeing anybody jumping out of their chair, I think we'll conclude. I will, so 2 years ago, when I stood in this room, I don't really remember what I said, but I know the 3 things that I touched on, because I basically, every relationship I have is based on trust, mutual respect, and mutual concern. Can I trust you? Are you committed? Do you care about me? I stole this from Lou Holtz. So he actually says, and I need to be better at it, do you love me, is what it really says on his statue. So I was thinking about that on the ride down here, and I was starting to think about the work that Beth has done at Bethany over the last 2 years. And can I trust her? Oh my goodness. Yes, yes. I trust Beth. She is open and honest and direct and bold, frankly. So do I trust her? Yes. Is she committed? She works so much doing things that all the time. I know she's committed because I can see the hours and the dedication that she brings to the college. And do we care about each other? Do we love each other? I think we have this deep concern and love for Bethany, and I think for both of us, it's this, what Bethany has done for us means I have a duty back to Bethany almost out of obligation that Bethany did for me, and it's my turn to give back. And I think Beth shares that. So as I thought about those core principles and her leadership and what we were coming to tonight, I was just really struck that it kind of tied back to 2 years ago, and I'm really, really excited to see what Bethany is in the next 3 to 5 to 10 years. Thank you all for coming tonight and for sharing your thoughts and questions and mostly for your time and dedication. Thank you, and thank you for everybody online. Good night.
Absolutely. It was good.